The first one we'll start with is just our baseball design. Now we've made this a couple times. Just it's a very simple design, and now with the magic text, or sorry, the magic. I saw the magic text button that we just saw. With the text effects tab, we can actually set these up pretty easy as live templates now too. So this feature that you see here that we created the design with is just simply using our knockout feature. So we're not using the magic tab where it adds stones or anything like that. It's simply just for pretty much a vectorized design. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is just write out the word, or we're going to set up our text. So let's go ahead and just move this over, or actually I'll bring it to a new page. So the first thing I want to do, I'm just going to use our text effects real quick, and I'm going to make, and actually since we'll make this as a baseball design, so we're not going to really edit anything except the bottom text in this live template. Once I make one text box, now if I was setting this design up as a, are you guys having trouble hearing me at all? Okay. I just moved the microphone a little bit, so hopefully that should help. But awesome. All right. So with the text here, because I'm actually the only part we're gonna reuse is the Lakewood Ranch High School. This bottom part here. When I create one text effect box, I can actually go back to my edit tab, and we have this copy selected. So we don't use this too often, but this is a good way to use this button. So I'm just going to hit down on the copy. I'm going to make 5 of these actual copies. Okay. So now I'm going to highlight all 5, or select all 5 boxes, and I'm just going to kind of shrink those in to my workspace here. So the bottom one, I'm going to make even smaller, and then the second to bottom, I'm going to make just a little bit bigger. So it's going to look like that at the end. So now I can go ahead and hit Find Text, and we'll see now on my live template editor I have Show All clicked. So if I don't have Show All and I hit Find Text, you're only going to see the word text just one time. So by hitting Show All, Find Text, you'll see all 5 of our text boxes, and they so happen to say the word text. So we'll start at the top one, and just gonna write baseball, 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 repeat, and then this bottom one's just gonna be the school name. So this is gonna be the part that's gonna be a live template. All right. So now here with our word baseball and repeat, when we work with the next button, our feature we're going to use is our knockout. So when we're working with our knockout text, or with our knockout button, to get the best results where you see the most of your player or item you want to knock out, it's best to use the text spacing tool on the edit tab to bring in the spacing of all of our text. So I can actually highlight the word baseball, all 3, and the word repeat, and I can go ahead and bring that in. So something just like that looks pretty good. We can go ahead and just make this gray, and I'll go ahead and make that red. So now we have our design set up just like that. Yeah, the text spacing tool, as long as you select all of them at the same time, you can use the text spacing on all of them. So the text spacing, when you don't have your word in an envelope, like if I just write the word baseball right here, because remember, the first time we did the word baseball, I went to my text effects, hit apply, and that throws the word text, and now this is an envelope. Because it's in an envelope, when I hit the text spacing tool here, or because the top word baseball right now, it's not in an envelope shape. If I hit the word TS or the letter TS, it will give me these little arrows down here on the left and the arrow on the right. The arrow on the right will allow me to space the characters of the word baseball. So I can increase the space between the letters or decrease the space between the letters. Now when you're in a text or when you're in an envelope shape, you're not going to get that little bar at the bottom where you can just slide it back and forth. So instead we have to use the buttons. So one is decrease, one is increase, and then if you had your text as a vertical text, you have the same buttons but for vertical text. So you have your increase and decrease but going up and down instead of left and right. So when you're not in an envelope shape, it makes it a lot easier to space it. When you are, like we are in this design here, you're just going to have to continuously click the button, just a left click, until those characters are moved in as much as you like. Yeah, so you can definitely, and what's cool, when you have it in an envelope shape, when you use it with the envelope, it keeps it in that envelope. So now, if I had the word baseball and I want to make all these football, well, now it still keeps the spacing of your design. So it doesn't matter what word I put in here. It's going to keep that same spacing. So I'm down here with the Brain River Pirates. I could actually increase the spacing just to kind of give it a little bit of a different look. So when they're in the envelopes, no matter, once you increase or decrease the spacing, it will save that in your design. Sometimes I'll throw in a couple extra spaces like this in between the actual word when I'm doing that to help show a little bit more space between the actual words and character, or between the individual letters and the words. All right, so now we're just going to add some artwork. So I can go ahead and do baseball. So we can use our baseball characters here, or you can even use a full silhouette. So if you rather use something like this. Now, when you use, and we can actually use both designs just to kind of give you an idea of the difference you'll get. So I'll flip this guy here. And we'll make him just a bright yellow just so we can see. And I'll make a copy, hit change artwork, baseball. Let's grab a picture this time. Make him yellow. Okay. So we have a couple different choices when we're working with our knockout. So you can use any type of vectorized design you want. So here I had one with a lot more detail in the baseball player. What this causes, though, is sometimes you get little cut lines and pieces like that. Now, it looks pretty nice because you get the full detail of your actual, like, baseball player. But here, we're going to use, like, a full silhouette instead. And we'll show you kind of the different results you'll get. So, once I have this set up, I can go ahead and weld all my baseball as one text. I'm going to weld my repeat as a single object. And then I'm going to select both the baseball and all the baseball text, which is one object because I welded it, and the word repeat. And I'm going to group those together. So these are all grouped together. So the 3 baseball is welded and the word repeat is grouped to that weld. Now, once I do that, I can select my baseball pitcher, hold shift, select the text behind it. So I have all those selected. And I'm going to use my knockout, set this to about 0.04, left click, and then that's going to trace over wherever my players were on top of those letters. Now, because I did a left click, all these little areas inside where we have open space is not going to be, the knockout won't capture that area. Now, if I do the same thing, but do a right click on the knockout button, now all those areas will be still there, and you get a little bit more of that player. So same thing down here. Select my text behind, left click my knockout. It gives me my design like that. You can see where this E ends, it cuts off his shoe because nothing's overlapping anymore. So if I want those pieces to remain, I do a right click and it gives me that extra detail there. Sorry, I went back too far. We had a question. What do you prefer design-wise? It's a little bit more preference to. I would honestly try to do both and see what my customer liked better. This tends to be a little bit more detailed, so you can see it a little bit more. This, on my end, is going to be a lot easier to cut. You're not going to get all those little pieces and stuff like that. So this probably going to look a little bit better on the t-shirt. So your client will probably pick that. But all these little cuts and stuff like that, those are going to be a little bit more of a headache to weed and just make sure they're cut correctly. Where this design here would be a little bit simpler. So I would try, if I'm making this design, I would probably try to pitch them on something, pitch them on something a little bit easier, but, we can always give them that option to have the more detailed look as well. So once we have this part here, the Braden River Pirates, this now is still a live template. So it can be Lakewood Ranch, Manatee High School. So whatever we want, we can easily customize that right now. Change the letter, or change like their color scheme to match. And then we have our new design. Sorry. Any questions on our first design? Or the knockout feature? These ARs, we had a question coming about these AR fonts. I'm not sure where these exactly came from. They're just installed on the computer I'm using. It's not a rhinestone font by any means or anything like that. They're just fonts that somehow got installed. So I'm not exactly sure exactly where they came from or anything like that. So we had another question. What made the baseball in the word repeat? What did we do to make it so we couldn't edit that part anymore? So once we added the knockout feature to that, it converts your text from it converts the word baseball from a text to an object. So by doing that feature with the knockout, it's doing a couple steps in the background. So it may be a 3 or 4 step process, and one of those steps is pretty much welding or converting that word baseball to a text, or it's converting it from a text to like an object instead. So the minute we use the knockout, we no longer can edit the word baseball or repeat. All right. So our next one here. Now this is just a pretty simple design. Just have a couple features we can use real quick showing this off. So one of the features we have, and I've gone over it a few times in different webinars, is our split feature. So that's how we got the look here. It's just a very simple, nothing, all text and shapes pretty much in the software, so we don't have to have any clip art or anything like that. It's just simply using the edit tab in the software. So what I did was type out Lakewood in athletics. Go ahead and choose the font we want to use. And I'll go ahead and bring this one down. So I pretty much have this as the base of my design. So at this point, what you can do is you can take the word athletics and you can weld it. And we'll go ahead and make a contour to the outside. And we're going to make a pretty big contour. Let's make that a different color. Something just like that. And then we'll go ahead and right click. And we're just going to hit break a contour group apart. So you can right click and hit break contour apart, or highlight and just hit break apart effects on your live template editor. All right, so now we're going to select the word athletics and we're going to right click the split button. So by right clicking the split, what that does is it puts a horizontal split right through our text. So if I go back to the enhanced view, if I select this bottom half and change the color, you can now see how that split our text right in half. So it will, the way this button or this split is set up is to give you an actual slight overlap of your two colors. That way it makes it really easy to line up. Also, to get the way to set up this design how we did this here, all I did was once I had this set up, I just pulled this side down a bit, this side up a bit, adds that nice kind of split feature, and then we can go ahead and set up our design just like that. And for the Lakewood, we just did one to the outside, a contour to the outside, a lot smaller. Something just like that. So very easy. We just, again, split it. Now the split feature is pretty cool. If you wanted to, you could do a vertical split. So with the same font. Go ahead and right click, break apart. We have our athletics text. So if I do a left click, it would split it vertically, and I could do my text like this instead. And if I wanted to just move it over a bit to give it that actual split as well, I could just set it up just like that. I don't necessarily like this design that much in that, just because now the way the E is split, it almost looks like it kind of throws like an extra I in there. So that's, I tend not to do it that way, but it is always an option if you want it that way. Now we always get this question too, what if we wanted a diagonal split? So if we wanted our split kind of going around that way. So unfortunately with the split feature, it's not going to work with the diagonal split. You actually would have to rotate your text, and by rotating it and then applying the split feature, then you can kind of get more of those diagonal cuts. And I actually like the way these usually turn out. But one thing is, when you do a split like this, I would just rotate it, like, let's say I do negative 13 degrees. That way, when you have that set, once you right click and add this split feature, it's going to put sometimes it doesn't rotate it back. So if I put that at 0 now, sometimes you might have to type in like 13 degrees though to spin it back the right direction. So my split, let's get that line out now, ends up looking like this instead. Which I like the way those come out a lot too. So to get those diagonal splits, we can set it up like this instead. And those end up looking pretty cool most of the time too. The reason I drew the B-spline was just to show you that split, like how people want the diagonal line like that. The B-spline has nothing to do with the actual cut. To get this cut ready, it technically is. Now, that leads us to another button on our edit tab, which is the magic trap. So when we get this cut ready, if I had this design with a decal or easy weed or material that I can layer, technically this design's done because I can just layer it right on top. Now let's say I want this design in glitter. So this black, we'll do glitter black in the back, glitter red on top, and then a glitter white like that. Now this is where we run into a problem. I can't layer glitter on top of glitter. So we have the magic trap. So instead, if we wanted, one way to get this cut ready would just be going to your live template editor, hit remove shapes behind, contour, magic boundary. Let me clear all these out. And that will add that boundary layer around the outside. Now we have this t-shirt color involved too, though, because whatever this area back here is now is going to be showing through, which most likely would be our t-shirt color. And then I'd have to do it for this color too, and then it ends up looking a little bit different because when I add that background color to it, whatever that background color would start to show through these areas now. So in cases like this, now this could be a good thing if you wanted that orange coming through. That's not, it's an extra color, so that's okay. But let's say we didn't want that orange coming through. So we have our vinyl set up like this. So this is where we can use our magic trap button. So on the edit tab, we have the magic trap. So here I can take these two pieces. So I have my red athletics and the black background. And I'm going to select magic trap. So usually what we'll see without the software is like a simplify or trim, which would just trim wherever the red is through the black. Now the problem with this is with vinyl, we know it can shrink, we know it can move. So if the vinyl shrinks or moves on us, now when we have that background color on it again, if we're off a little bit, we start to see those little areas where the shirt shows through in our design. So to prevent that from happening, we have our magic trap button. So same thing, left click the magic trap. I select my red and my black, magic trap. So visually it doesn't look like it changed much, but now it actually cuts this out like the trim does, but where my red stops is underneath my black now. So it actually layers a little bit of the red, but enough where you can still layer the glitter vinyl. And if you are off a little bit, so if I move this now, you still don't see that t-shirt showing through in any of those areas. So the magic trap's a great feature if you want your design to look exactly like this, but want to layer like a non-layerable vinyl. Hit the magic trap. It still traps it out, but it also gives us a little layer around the outside. Alright, so then we can finish with Braden River. Add our contour to the outside. Go ahead and break that apart, and I'll just subtract that right through, and then I can even layer that or weld that to my black, so that's all one piece now. Yeah, so good question. Let me go back a step, because actually the way we set this up with our athletics, what we could actually do, because the way we set it up now is the red and white would have to be laid down first, which would be hard. So all we have to do instead is when I hover over this magic trap button, you can see down here at the bottom, it will say shift click to trap bottom shape. So in this case, I'd probably want to hold shift and click the magic trap. And what that does is actually puts the black underneath my red. And that way it'd be a lot easier to layer the black first and then the red on top. So same thing with the white, hold shift and then hold shift when I click the magic trap, and then my red and white would go on top of the black, and it's still cut out the same, but now it's just a lot easier to layer. The washing, because it's a very small layer, the washing's fine. So if you didn't add that layer, or if you didn't use a trap, or you just layer glitter on glitter, that's where the washing is going to become an issue. But because we add that slight magic trap, we're okay. So I'm just adding the contour, subtracting it through, just setting this up here, and I'm just going to weld it to my black piece there. So now this is actually cut through. If I wanted to, I could close up this little gap. Just have it one solid piece. And then the last thing is just adding a couple stars. So this is another feature that I really like on the software. It's the fill between two. And the fill between two usually is used with stones, but you can actually use it with any shape in Corel. So I can make a copy of my star here, select both of these objects, fill between two. Now it will connect or almost connect all those stars. So when we have those selected, I can come down to my arrow here. It will say -1 stone, but it's pretty much -1 object. So I hit down on the arrow, and you'll notice how my stars go down, and it'll keep it when you take one out, it'll keep it proportionate between each of the stars. So it's very important though, once we get to this point, if you have all your stars selected and I try to change the color of these stars, right now it's on a weird path that will probably freeze out Corel if you try to add color to it right now. So what you need to do is click clear pass first. Then you should be able to select every star as an individual object. If for some reason you click on the outside, you should be able to select those no matter what by themselves. But if you move it, you can see how the shape moves with it. And if you select any of the middle ones, it will select them all. So that's how you still know it's on that path. So if I hit clear pass, and then I select these middle ones, I should be able to move them freely. So go ahead and make those red, or I could even do alternate. And now I have my finished design. The clear pass, what that button does is it has a couple features, but mostly clearing paths of either like stones, or when we do fill betweens shapes like that, it will clear the paths of those. So it's just getting rid of that special path that it's on so you can edit them a little bit more freely. All right, so any questions on our second design? Why didn't Brain River show up? Well, I subtracted this middle part through it. This part would just be like our t-shirt color showing through at this point. I just subtracted that inside through the fill. The font I was using for the last design was called, I believe it's called Anton. Let me pull it up real quick. Sorry, Agency. Agency. I don't know if that's an actual like Google font or if I've had this computer for a while. Multiple people have used it, so like I just have a lot of fonts installed on it, so I'm not exactly sure where that one came from. But if you type in Agency font, it should show up either probably on like DaFont or Google Fonts. The fox steak design that popped up. This is one of our new animal puns design, so this is actually coming out too. So whoever saw asked about that. That's all that was. I was just testing the text to make sure it worked right. But that's just a little preview of one of the new pun packs. And then this is the other one. It's a little preview. Yeah, Pillar, wasn't allowed to show that one. Alright. So our last design here is just our Corgi Moms. So on the edit tab, I decided to kind of include this too, just as a little preview of what Matt's getting into on his live this week. He's working with magic patterns. Now, technically, the magic pattern is on the edit tab, but we've moved it to its own Docker up here too. So under the live template editor, you will have the magic patterns. A little bit easier to see when you use the Docker window than just hitting these little windows here. But you will have a little preview of all the patterns, so you can pull or use them from this little window here, or you can open up the full Docker window up here. All right. So on this design, let's go ahead and write out Corgi and the word mom. Go ahead and break those using the B. All right. So with the word Corgi, what we did is just added a contour. So we're going to just make that first contour pretty big. And go ahead and break that off. And then I actually just grabbed that again and did a smaller contour. Just made that white. And bring it in kind of just like that. And then we'll right click that contour, that white one, break apart. And by breaking apart now, it's just this is still a text technically right now. We're going to change that soon, the word Corgi. This is just a solid object behind it, and then same here. Right, so it's just a 3-color look. So now on our magic patterns, we have our different pattern packs. So you should have installed with the wizard, you should have some basic ones where I might have gone past them. It's just some hearts, some circles. So you have to be in a couple different heart patterns, circle patterns. So you should have a few just to kind of play with. Some hearts, random heart scatters, and some stars. And then everything else is kind of just different pattern packs that we offer. So some might be animals, some are just paisley, some are just sport. So a lot of different random packs that we have. For the white part here, I just grabbed the word again and just added it around that. All right, so now we're going to take the word Corgi Now, when we're using our magic patterns, it does make a difference of how large our design initially starts out as. So I'm going to enlarge the word corgi to, let's just say, 35 inches wide. Okay. Now, the reason I'm doing that is because normally if I had this word, let's say it was a 10-inch design. If I add my pattern to a 10-inch design, you only see a couple paws in it. Now, if I do the same pattern to a 35-inch design, you see a lot more of those paws in it. So depending on how large your design is, the more that pattern can fill it. And when I'm done, I just resize this back to 10. Make them both. And it's still going to have the same pattern in it, but now it's to a size where I can actually cut this design. All right, so now what we can do with these patterns is any of these patterns we have, and I don't want to go crazy with the magic patterns tonight just because, again, Matt's going to go over these in his webinar later this week, but one of the coolest features of these patterns is now any pattern that you have, you technically have a vector of that design. So we have some that have like football players or different sports players through them. So if I make this a little bit bigger and I use my soccer one here, you can see all my different soccer players and soccer ball that I have. So now what we're able to do is take our Smart Fill tool, and I'm going to come fill these little paw areas. Now I don't want to fill one that's kind of open like this, because if I left click in here, it's going to want to fill this entire area. So you have to find a shape that's completely closed in, like this paw here, or the first one I chose. Once you do that though, so like our design up here, all these little designs that are in our patterns, I can actually take out and use in my different designs now. So obviously I wouldn't need any of these soccer ones right now, but if I wanted to use it with my last design, let's say I have this soccer pattern, I could take my soccer player here, bring him in my design here, use my magic boundary, and now I have a brand new design. So we can take any of those patterns and create vectors from it and make our own designs from those too. So here I can take the paw, make it a little bit bigger, take the word mom, break that apart, get rid of that, throw that right in there, weld it together, and if I want, I can add a little bit of a boundary or contour, just like that. Weld my M's back together. Break that contour. And now I have my finished design. So very simple, just pretty much recycling the clip art that are in magic patterns. Yeah, no problem. So for the contour, We just selected our paw here. It's all welded together. Add a little, click the contour button, just adjust it. It has this outline to it, so I'm just going to right click this X. That's going to clear that color around the outside. And that's how we add our contours. All right. So any questions on any of our designs or tools we use tonight? The contour on this one particularly is 0.12, but depending on your overall size of your design, it's going to change. So that contour, you're always going to adjust it depending on your design. Yeah, Pillar, you could have definitely. I was just showing the contour just to kind of get the look, but if we were ready to cut, we could definitely use the magic boundary instead. The recording of this will be up by tomorrow for you guys. No problem. Yeah, exactly. With the contour, it's just playing around with it to see what looks best, because if I have a design here, at this size, my design's 9 inches wide. This contour looks pretty good at it. But if I made that same design, let's say really big, look how small my contour looks now. So you're always, depending on the overall size of your design and everything like that, you're always going to be adjusting your contour. So now I'd have to make this really big just to get the same look. Now if I have this grouped together, so I do Control G, if I move this in now, it keeps that same contour. If you group it, it kind of keeps the proportion intact. Now if you came in here and you adjusted this at all, it's going to look really big. But if you do keep it grouped while you adjust it, it keeps that same look. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for attending. Later this week, we do have another webinar coming up. Matt's going to post one. Let me pull it up real quick. Pull that up there. So I think, Thursday, July 18th. Matt's going to be going over the maximizing the magic patterns in CorelDRAW and the TRW software. So that, just a little snippet of what you're capable of doing with the magic patterns. But Thursday, Matt's going to do his premium. That will go in depth a little bit more with those patterns. Hey, Sean. So in this program, I can't highlight the cursor, but in the recording, I can. So in the recording, you'll actually see the cursor. I try to like hover over, but I know it's a little bit tricky to follow. But in the recording, it will all be actually like covered. You'll be able to see it a lot easier. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. You have a great night. And yeah, I don't have a webinar plan. It'll probably be early next week. We'll do another one of these. All right. right, guys. Have a great one. And Carol, I saw your message too. So I'll try to get with Matt and see what we can do with that. All right, guys. Bye.